Hello, podcast world. Welcome to Balance Life Mastery, the show where we talk about all things high performance and life balance without the burnout. Stories, insights, and actionable tips on creating the life you deserve, giving you and your teams the unfair competitive advantage in work and personal life. Hello, podcast world, and welcome to episode 9, where we are actually going to be talking about a topic because we have our first listener's question that's come in. So this has been an awesome topic to actually discuss between us, Jeremy, because it is something that both of us, I think, kind of resonate with, but also know the importance of owning in order to kind of get ahead in whatever it is in terms of achieving goals or career or life in general. So the topic today is, how do you know if you're a high performer? How do I know if I'm a high performer? How can you identify a high performer? And I think the main thing that kind of interlinks here is the key imposter syndrome, which if you haven't heard that episode, go listen to it, because a lot of people don't know how to identify as a high performer or put themselves down because of the wonderful imposter syndrome. So, Jeremy, what are your takes on being a high performer?
Just before that, I think we just need to recognize your background and the fact you're not Zoom backgrounding today. You've gone to the new recording studio. So,
this is our officially new recording studio in Vegas with an incredible background. But so this is the life.
Unfortunately,
life.
I was going to say, unfortunately, we're bootstrapping the podcast, so there was only one ticket. So I am left here.
Next time it's awesome. Yours, it's fine.
It is a tricky one, and it's a bit like that lazy versus burnt out that we talked about the other week, because there's kind of a fine line. But I think a high performer is someone that kind of consistently does what they need to do over a prolonged period of time, because it's all about what's the most valuable thing that you can do, and it's people working strategically, because and we'll probably touch on this during the podcast, there's this real fine line between a high performer and a workaholic. And I think a lot of people are actually workaholics, but they think they're high performers. And then there's a lot of high performers that kind of don't resonate with it, like you said, with imposter syndrome. But just whether it's the Instagram living their best life, where they see that, if you want to be a tech billionaire or you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to work 20 hours a day and all this absolute rubbish that makes you think that I'm not a high performer. And also people think high performers mean high net worth or high earning or all these things, and it's totally rubbish. It's that how much value you can give with what you've got, while kind of keeping true to yourself as well.
You know what? I think so. The biggest thing that resonates for me is I used to always think high performers are high earners. That was the big defining factor for me, which I look back now and I'm like, that is the stupidest thing. I always knew I was a hard worker, but I think there was part of me, I was like, am I allowed to call myself a high performer because I don't earn as much as these crazy whatever? And technically, the definition of a high performer is someone who goes above and beyond to achieve their goals. So, and we'll go into kind of the traits and characteristics of a high performer in a second, but that is essentially it. It is someone who knows what they're working towards and goes after it. And that's essentially, and a lot of people and a lot of clients that I've spoken to and a lot of just normal conversations, if I called someone a high performer, a high achiever, their face literally twists up in a second, because they're like, I'm not a high achiever. I'm not a high performer. I'm like, you actually are. So it is, if I could flip a switch and help people recognize that, just to be able to empower them that little bit more to get ahead in life, I think that would be a massive win for me. So, but yeah, it's a tough one to identify with.
I think you made a really good point there about goals. I mean, that's probably one of the first flags about whether someone is a high performer. and it's the fact they've actually got goals, and it's not I want more, or I want this, or I want that. It's that sort of strategic, well thought out goal around what they want to achieve, why they want to achieve it, what does it kind of mean to them. Because if you think about sports stars and things like that are high achievers, it's the commitment to mastery and, you know, commitment to craft. So you'll look at, you know, Ronaldo gets a lot of bad press around whether his lifestyle or attitude or something, but it's consistently said that he's the guy that's in the gym the longer time. He's the one that's doing the nutrition. He's the one that's taking the extra free kicks. He's the one that, and it's like that because he has that aim to be more than what he is today, and that commitment to do it. And it's the same with so many people. It's that, they sort of say when you do it when the cameras aren't on, and it's all that sort of stuff. It's like, are you learning things when you don't have to be learning? Are you doing the extra bits at work when you don't have to be doing it, or are you only doing it when it's like showy, or to be able to say that you've done it? I think that's so the goals one's massive.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And top performers or high performers or high achievers, whatever you want to phrase it, I think these words scare a lot of people, but essentially they focus their time and energy on their goals. And there was something, it's just like you said, it's what do you do behind the scenes in order to achieve what you want? And that was the biggest. I read that and I get goosebumps every time I see it on Instagram or wherever else. I get goosebumps because that is so true. If you sit at home watching Netflix all day and expect to become a millionaire, or expect to be shredded and ripped, and if you want to link muscle ups, right? So over lockdown, I lost all of my muscle ups, and what have I been doing? I've been building that back up. I'm back up to 5 again, right? So it's what do you do in the background? So that's essentially, and high performers, high achievers start each week by assessing where they're at in terms of their goals, what their expectations are. They remind themselves of their aspirations, and they align everything that they do in their week to that goal and behave accordingly. Because it's just like our, we had an episode where we were discussing values and alignment with values. That again, if you haven't heard that, go listen to it. But because everything needs to be aligned, and when you're aligned, things start to happen. The magic starts to happen. So yeah, and that's basically the first trait of a high performer, is that they focus on goals.
And it's not that it's not the doing it because the offer's there. So like you're saying about the values, it's not just sticking the hand up because they want to do the work, or just busying themselves with volumes of email and stuff like that. It's like that value focus. It's like, how's this going to move me forward? How's it going to make me a better person? Do I really care about it? And quite often high performers find it easy to be high performers because they are working on the things they truly care about, they're passionate about. And we sort of talk about work-life balance and the fact that it doesn't really exist. But if you're working on something you truly care about, you can work more hours, you can do all these things because you're passionate about it. And that's, again, it's one of those differentiators. You're not doing it to just fill your 9 to 5.
Yeah, sure. And so just a second trait that really I think sticks out for me is that high achievers, high performers know that their attitude affects their environment, right? And they work to keep that positive attitude, because whether it's interacting with others, they know whether they're speaking to their superiors in the office, their managers, their bosses, or to their team, their attitude is going to affect their entire surroundings and the people that they deal with. And that's why if you look at the difference in a team member, for example, that when they get assigned a challenging task, you've got the person who huffs and puffs and sits there head in hands and you've got the other person who knows it's challenging, but keeps that upbeat momentum and sees and reframes the perspective in terms of, this is an opportunity to grow and to learn. So I think that's another huge one that sticks out for me in terms of a trait.
Yeah, that positive demeanor, and just that how you go into how you go into a challenge or a new situation, massively dictates the outcome, but also dictates how you feel about it. So that's a really good mental switch for people to have. Like it's like, this is going to be challenging, almost like, what can I learn from this? Because like the two people you just talked about, they're both doing the work, whether they like it or not. They're both having to do this work, and you can either enjoy the journey and learn something from it, or you can complain about it and you're still doing the journey. So.
Exactly, and get screwed along the way and just not enjoy it. That 100%, because at the end of the day, what are you going to say? No, well, you're not going to get paid. You're probably going to get fired. So, I mean, it's either you see the joy in it and you see the opportunity in it, or you don't. And that, I think, is it brings us on to the next one, which is high performers have a very well developed work routine and workplace habits. So that's another big one. And if you haven't heard that episode, go check it out. This is so cool that we're doing them in order. But that's essentially it. Showing the consistent effort, the reliability, the always giving their best effort. It doesn't mean that they're always right. It means that they are always giving their same consistent best effort, and other people can always rely on them to complete certain things or to find out if something is impossible, because a lot of the times in the workplace we're given challenges that cannot be solved, and that is totally okay. But it's knowing how to feed that back to superiors and create that narrative around it. So the consistent, the regular behavior and the effort is something a lot of people strive for. So I think that's a big differentiator as well.
And yeah, when I ran teams, consistency was so important to me, because I like the McDonald's analogy. Like, McDonald's is not the greatest restaurant on earth, right? But you can go anywhere in the world and you will know what the fries will taste like, and you know what the burger will be like, and it won't look like the picture, but it will be consistent, because they have an amazing system to make sure it's consistent and repeatable. And no one complains about McDonald's because they know what they're getting. But if you go to a restaurant and one day the food's terrible and that expectation changes, it's a real kicker. And it's the same with individuals. If I gave someone a job and they did absolutely knocked it out of the park, the next job that I give them, if they're sort of not interested, don't do it, and it's to a really low standard, that it's the delta that sticks in my mind. You don't remember the amazing achievement and poor achievement, and you sort of go, oh, that's 50-50. It's the delta, and you go, right, well, where's the drop off? And I don't want to risk the second one. So that consistency is really key for a leader seeing it, and also for the individual, because I think it gets away from that boom and bust mentality.
Yeah. And what about skill set? So this is a bit of a controversial one, but I truly believe, so once again, our episode about hobbies, so that's one to go listen to. But essentially, workplace skills or life skills, not just subject matter knowledge, not just the technical knowledge, but interpersonal skills, relational abilities, emotional intelligence, social intelligence, all of these things, if people are highly capable and they're skilled in these areas, I think that puts them on a whole different, because again, I mean, your background's IT. How many, in all honesty, IT professionals lack the social skills for them to progress in a corporate environment? Because that's a big thing, right? They're playing the politics, playing the political game. And I think my background in digital as well, there are a lot of people head down in computers and the creative and the numbers, and then you get them to have a conversation and it's like blank.
There's quite a few, and to be fair, I was very similar. I really struggled for quite a long time, because I was very analytical, very right, wrong, nothing in between, because IT is ones and zeros. And having that ability to bring a team together is powerful. Having the I always liked IT generalists. So I always used to get told to recruit a specialist, and the problem was that, like you said, they're sort of heads down. They don't understand the bigger picture. They can't be a broader thinker. They don't challenge their own thinking. So that high achiever that has that broad skill set, that is open to hearing different viewpoints and bringing those in. And just for people that are on their career journey that are listening to this, it was really interesting. I had a coaching call yesterday, and we were talking about the whole sort of I'm not putting words in the person's mouth, but I'm sort of ad-libbing what they said, but basically people getting promoted to the level of their incompetence. And it was really interesting because it's rife in IT, but when we start talking about it, it's actually rife across the board, that you're the most skilled person in the team and you become the manager. You're the best sales rep and you become the sales team manager because you're the best, therefore you kind of get moved up. So really think about those skills now if you're looking at that career path, because if you want to be that high achiever, corporate life and entrepreneurial life and any life is brutal, right? And you have to have those skills before you walk in the door. If you suddenly take a team lead role and you can't communicate effectively and you can't be empathetic and you can't be strategic, you're not having that role for very long. More people will get it and then never progress because it's hard for companies to get rid of people. But you can't go back down as much as some people would be desperate to do it. So yeah, the sooner you can bring that, get that strong skill set, that'll serve you for life. And like you said, the hobbies, the broader than just where you want to get to is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Like, I worked at a company without naming names, and there was this employee, again, not going to identify gender or anything, but that person was clueless in terms of the field that we were operating in, that we were working in. Clueless. Like, I mean, I don't even know how they call themselves an expert in the field or how they even grew in that, but absolutely clueless, right? Yet that person has climbed the ranks because they were fantastic at social relationships within the company. The way that they spoke, they dealt with others, they portrayed themselves as a personality, and it was something, I mean, I watched in awe because I'd seen people who were experts in their areas, but also had the skills and kind of grew in their careers. But this was so far on one side of the spectrum, and but yeah, it just shows you, and they are quite high up in a massive company now, and it's yeah, I mean, good for them, truly. That shows you how far it takes you. What about, because this is the next one, being able to accept constructive criticism? So this is the big one, the defensiveness. I think there are two parts to it, is knowing how to give constructive criticism, but also knowing how to take it. And I think there's a very gray area, because a lot of people are like, yes, I can take feedback, but then it's delivered in a very negative way. So that's one factor. But I think in general, if we look at constructive criticism, when delivered correctly, it is designed to help people improve, right? It's designed to help people recognize their blind spots that other people see, for you to go back and kind of reflect and improve on those things. So how are you with constructive criticism?
Better now. unless it's in the gym and I'm under fatigue and I keep getting told to put my legs together, and I'm like, don't you think I'm trying? And I literally walked in the gym this morning and the guy's like, you didn't come to the class this morning, and I was looking forward to just telling you to put your legs together. It's like, thanks very much. But I used to be terrible at it, and I think we all want to feel like we know the answer, but if you know the answer to everything, you'll never learn anything. But yeah, I think if you are that high achiever, and I got there towards the end, it was understanding that feedback will get you closer to that goal. And again, it's the importance of having that goal and the values to tie it back to, because after that hot-headed moment that I think most people would get, as they try and compute it in their heads, you realize that that will get you closer to that goal.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the biggest thing is not to take things personally. And taking things personally comes from our own insecurities. And that's the biggest thing to consider, because every time if someone sends me a text or an email or something, and I feel a little bit of that spark of defensiveness, because it still happens. I'm like, what triggered it? What am I feeling right now? What's triggered me? Why am I feeling this irritated? And that is so powerful when we're able to really reflect on why we're feeling something. So I always try to go back to any sort of criticism, in the gym, outside of the gym, even from you, by asking, how can I improve? Asking for a bit more detail, because that actually sheds a lot of light on someone else's perspective and why they're seeing certain things. Because they may say, Jeremy, keep your legs closer, right? And you're like, why is he picking on me? But if you ask how or why, then they'll be like, well, because that way you can make sure that your, I don't know, whatever movement is a lot stronger. Or if you point your toes out, then your squat's going to be a lot deeper, or whatever that might be. So I think, that's a huge one for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's just to be clear, like, don't send constructive feedback over email. It's terrible, because you can't read context. You can't back and forward. And the amount of times I've had to deal with that sort of blowback. I used to have US colleagues that would say, "Oh, why is this French guy so blunt on email?" It's like, because culture. And secondly, English isn't his first language, so he's just writing it how it sort of comes out of his head. And it's always hard, like, it's, reframe everything. And again, we need to do an NLP session just to sort of talk about reframing. And if you receive some negative feedback, think of it as, what's the positive feedback? So the guy's telling me to put my feet together, and I could say, oh, it's because he's picking on me in the class, and and he thinks it's a funny joke because telling someone to shut their legs. But actually it's because he thinks that if I do that one bit, I'll be able to smash it. Or maybe it's because I won't hurt myself, or all these things. Like, if you can swap to the positive, it makes that real difference in how you'll perceive that feedback.
Yeah, 100%. So the next one is looking for growth opportunities all the time, right? And this is something definitely that I think this is something we both share, is that we continuously want to grow in terms of our knowledge. But it's not just about knowledge accumulation. It's, what are we going to do with that knowledge? So, I mean, whether it's from, again, education, skills-based kind of training, research, additional responsibilities, whatever that might be, hobbies, again, another one, ding, ding, like finding a mentor, reading books, applying to a course of some sort, participating in some sort of workshop, all of these things, finding a mentor at work, or outside of work. I think that's something that I'm very, very hungry for. And I'm like, I want to learn everything in the world. And I fall into a trap sometimes where I get shiny object syndrome, but I think that's a very powerful perspective to have, for sure.
And that goes back to that early thing around, again, values, goals. And because you're getting those mentors, webinars, books, whatever you're doing, for a reason, and it is because you want to go on that journey to fulfillment. I always caution people when they do IT certificates or other things, because they feel like they should, because that's the little imposter syndrome brain cutting in. But if someone turns around and says, I want to do it because I'm really fascinated about this new technology, I think there's a good crossover, or there's a career opportunity and bits like that, it's like, that's wonderful. And it's, someone that likes to take photographs, that's great. They, like the hobby thing, they want to take photographs, that's great. But they read a relevant book around like shutter speeds or like light exposure or something, and then they go implement it. that's the true, like you're saying, that's the true shine of a high performer, because they're continuously developing their craft, even if they're not making any money out of it, just so they get better holiday photos. That's investing time in something you want to get better at, rather than just spending time on something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. That's definitely one. I think then the last one that I have on my list, and this is the biggest one, and this is why we've created our programs, and this is why we've kind of put together Balanced Life, and both of us, it, I think, rings very true to our past careers, and all of that is high performers find healthy work-life balance, right? So it kind of the being able to prioritize professional goals and life's desires and life's aspirations and personal goals. And I think that the knowing that having a healthy work-life balance and having the boundaries to put that in place and ensuring that they take time for themselves is crucial, beyond crucial, to kind of create that sustainability in terms of performance outcomes. So that was, but yeah, I think along with all the others, I think they're all important, but I think if you don't have the balance, then none of the other things that we've spoken about can exist long term.
Yeah, because I mean, that work-life balance, and firstly, that's one of the real big flags between a workaholic and a high performer, because it's understanding that you have to rest, and it's understanding that you're working on the important stuff. So, you know, sitting there checking your emails at 9 o'clock at night is not a high performer. That's a workaholic, because you should be relaxing, spending time with your partner, like doing your hobby, or you know, reading a book, whatever you want to do. So that's one of the real big flags. But yeah, like you said, they're all important, but that work-life balance is if you're not resting, you're going to go into work emotionally charged. So then you're going to take feedback poorly. Like, you're going to be not as productive. If you're busying yourself in the evening, you don't have time for the webinar, the training course, the mentor, all these things. And it's having that balance is the ability to give your brain space to do all the other things that you need to do, to review your day, to decompress it, ready to properly go again tomorrow, rather than work till you drop your phone by your bed, wake up, stare at your phone, and just live the hamster wheel life of continuously like go. And that's the workaholic, that's the burnout, that's the life we don't want to need. And you won't achieve as much in your life. I think people are always amazed at that. They always think the workaholic achieves more. I definitely don't.
Absolutely not. They end up burning out, just like we know very well. So one with anxiety, one with a heart condition, and there you go. That's what you get. But yeah. So what would be your biggest tips for someone wanting to become or identify as being, I was about to say gender there, a high performer at work?
I think I number one is work out where you really want to get to. So having those goals. So then when you're at work, you can be fully strategic about whether you want to be the most senior technical resource, or whether you want to be a leader, or whether you want to start your own business. I think that's important, because that will help on those bad, busy days, because you can say, look, I'm going to achieve my goal out of this. And I think that's probably the biggest. And then just be as strategic as possible. Like, do the big stuff, do the things that are going to move you forward, and know that there's always another task to do. Like, your day will continuously get filled with stuff. But it's like, if you can move the big boulders towards the goals that you want, which align with your values, like that's the high achiever's life. That's doing whatever you want to do.
100%. And I think, so when I think of, and I know quite a few people like this, that they work Monday to Friday, then the weekend comes and they're either asleep all day or they're out getting drunk every Friday and Saturday night. And it's kind of like, yeah, I'm not saying don't give yourself that release. A party is great every once in a while, but that kind of, it's very much polar opposites. It's work, 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 and then party, 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 or do nothing, nothing, nothing. And that is what doesn't work. I think, yeah, my main tip is make sure that your personal and professional behaviors align. Because if you act one way at work and you act a completely different way out of work, this is the trap I was in my entire life, is that I was living a life that was not true to me. So my life outside of work was very, very different. I had this facade on in the workplace. And that's why ultimately you end up burning out and not knowing who you are and what you want in life, and that identity crisis. I used to say I had a very early midlife crisis in my 30s, but that's essentially, I think it. So yeah, that would be my biggest tip as well. Any others?
I was just going to say on that about the partying hard, it's like the why. And if you can uncover why you partying hard, and if it is because you absolutely love to spend time with people and your day job is sat in a cubicle not talking to anyone, that's kind of all right. But if you're using the party to as the escapism, to forget, to drink alcohol and like not end yourself, like bury yourself in like just to escape, that's the totally wrong approach to do it. And it's working out what will give you that similar release. So whether that's joining a gym class that has loads of people and goes for a coffee afterwards or something, like if you're drinking because you crave human interaction, that's one thing. Like work out how to do it in a probably more sustainable way. But if you're doing it just to escape that life, you need to work out what's the root cause. How do you need to change it, rather than just it's like someone that has the little cheeky glass of wine every night just to relax after work. It's like, well, why do you need to relax after work? Like what is it that is causing you the stress at work? Or is it just this crutch that you've made up and you want to do it? It's uncovering exactly that bit. That's where you really make some strides.
And you know what? I mean, this would be a very good entry point to talk about why that's exactly why we created Life by Design, right? Our program, it's a 6-month program, and that is essentially it, is to be able to align, first of all, discover what it is that you actually want and why you're miserable, or why you've got certain behaviors like drinking late at night or whatever that might be, but also aligning your personal, professional goals and setting goals so that you don't end up regretting your life at the end. You know what? I'm going to bring this up, and I think I put it on a post on social media. My son and I went to the Grand Canyon, and while we were walking around, there were people sobbing, and all we could hear was, like, this has been my dream to come here. I've waited my entire life. And there was a woman who, she was crying, and she had made the trip for her husband who passed away. He had saved up his entire life, not saved up, he had wanted to go his entire life, put it off. He said he'd do it in retirement, right? And guess what? The guy isn't around anymore. So it's like, why wait? Why wait till the time is perfect? Why not do something now? And it really, really shook something in me that, I mean, even a trip like this, I could have said, oh, I'll wait another 3 years, and no, it was a huge, huge moment for me. So I think, don't wait, don't ever wait, because regret is so much worse than actually doing something in your life. So.
And if you want to make something work, you can make it work. I think that's the bit. And I know that will cop some stick with people saying, oh, well, it's like a money thing, but it's like, but you don't have to do all the top end stuff, or you could like have a shorter trip, or you could do something that moves you towards it. But yeah, I mean, putting things off till you retire, or putting things off till just like, I used to have a goal that I wanted to earn $2,000 a month after tax when I started work, and I thought I'd be happy. And funnily enough, I wasn't, and I wanted more. But it's the same thing in everything. It's like, oh yeah, we'll have another year's savings, and then we'll do the Thailand trip or something. It's like, just do it, work out how to do it. Don't put yourself in debt, but work out how do you optimize things and make it happen. Like, be creative.
100%.
But yeah.
100%. Amazing. Well, this has been awesome. It's definitely lit up a little bit of a fire in me. But yeah, essentially being a high performer. And if there's one skill that you want to go work on, is learn to communicate. Again, communication is such an underrated skill that people either kind of know or don't know. So go out and learn about communication, how to communicate effectively. We can do an episode on that as well. But yeah, we hope you found this super useful. You are probably a high performer, so make sure that you give yourself the credit that if you identify with any of these things, and you probably do, and you're putting yourself down, that's another thing. So just make sure that you're giving yourself the credit, and you're probably a higher performer than you actually think. So with that, yeah, I think you guys are all awesome. And yeah, until next episode. Take care, guys.
Thank you very much for listening. If you like the episode, please subscribe, share it with a friend or a colleague, and leave us a review on whichever podcast platform you're using. We read them all, and it really helps us get the insights and the guidance on where to take the program forward. And also connect with us on social media. Share your journey with us for your high performing and balanced life. And lastly, remember to take the BalanceQ scorecard. The link will be in the show notes. And BalanceQ, or BQ, is your balance quotient. It's your ability to live this high performing and balanced life, both in your personal and professional career. And when you take the scorecard, you get actionable insights, you get the steps that you can take to really take yourself on this journey. So with that, we thank you very much for listening, and look forward to you listening on a future episode, and have an amazing day.